Hello, everyone, and welcome to Heart and Hand Rangers podcast. My name is Cameron Bell. I am your host, as always, on your extra show. And joining me this week, and I could not have him on as we come to the end of the transfer window. It's a very good friend, Simon Hallam. Simon, thank you so much for coming on. You live, breathe, eat the transfer window. Christmas is now finished for you, my friend. How are you coping so far?
I'm actually surprisingly really good after it, Cammy. Thanks for having me on as usual. Yeah, I mean, we've learnt a lot of lessons after the summer transfer window where we kind of all went in two-footed on certain signings, certain players thinking that this was going to be the second coming. We've kind of learned a lot from that, I believe, since. So, yeah, a decent window, I'd say, overall for us. And let's hope that the players that we brought in can kick on now over the next couple of weeks because we've seen in the game against Kilmarnock what exactly they can bring to the team.
Yeah, and we'll cover part of that, I think, Simon, in terms of the Kilmarnock game, because I think that we've seen um, an interesting reaction, I think, to how Rangers did the transfer business in the window. We will talk about that, but I do want to talk about the Kilmarnock game because I think it was an interesting one. You and I did our post-match card pod on
Yeah.
our Patreon site after coming out of Ibrox on Wednesday night. And a game of two halves, I think, is how we perfectly described it, because in the first half, I thought Rangers were a little bit pedestrian. I thought that we lacked some creativity. And I thought that we got pretty much the dream start with the red card for Killie and the penalty. So we're a goal up and we're a man up. And what my hope was, as I was going into Ibrox last night before kickoff, was that following the result on the Tuesday night, where Hearts obviously lost to St Mirren and Paisley, this Rangers team would have been able to use that as a booster, and hopefully having taken some lessons away from, quite a disappointing performance at Easter Road. And we're now at the stage, I think, Simon, where we're hoping for, wins almost, and wins are a must. Wins are an absolute must, of course, but you're hoping to start to see a bit more energy and a bit more creativity from some of these players. And something that I do want to mention was Danny Rule last night in the post-match press conference made reference to some of the smattering of boos at halftime,
Yeah.
and he was quite surprised by that. And I'll be honest with you, I mean, I wasn't one that joined in, right? And I'm never, ever going to tell Rangers fans how to behave. You pay your money, you've got the right to voice your opinion. It's entirely down to you, right? And it genuinely was a low level of booing. It was certainly not stadium wide. I don't think, in my honest opinion, that was based on the 45 minutes that we saw in that game. I think that's from the 90 minutes at Easter Road, then looking to be able to get a reaction following the Hearts loss, and then not seeing that within the 45 minutes against Kilmarnock. And so, to an extent, whilst, again, like you say, I don't really have an opinion on the boo, and I'm not going to tell you if you're right or wrong. I do understand it, but I think the manager is learning now, if he didn't before, that Rangers fans are nervous. Rangers fans have high expectations. And when you're going to get yourselves into a title race, which, let's face it, was dead and buried in September, but you're going to work to be able to create the level of consistency that we have across the course of the last 8-9 games, with some brilliant results in there. When you don't see it, then you're going to voice a disapproval. And that, I think, for me, was quite an interesting kind of side note about what we saw within the first 45 minutes against Killie on Wednesday night.
Yeah, it was. You kind of talked about it during the day yesterday before the game, saying it was a mentality thing. How were they going to mentally react to this being we had a real good chance of getting win 3 points of Hearts and pushing on. I think was it 14 points. Danny Rule mentioned we were behind at one point, so we have managed to bring it back in. Now, in terms of the frustration, I can definitely see where it comes from because there's a lot of scar tissue over the years with this Rangers team, especially after Christmas and New Year time comes when we seem to get ourselves into a good position and then we inevitably start falling away. But the manager's earned the trust of the fans now. You see a lot of the games of late where we will have a poor first half performance and then he'll turn it around in the second half. You only need to look at last night in the Celtic game to be your prime examples of this as well. So the manager's earned that trust. I think as fans, we do have to be a little bit more patient. And I know at times last night it was that first half myself. It was frustrated. Guys like Asgard just dilly dallying and miscontrolling balls. The passing was all off. So it is. Danny Rose still a young manager learning his trade at the end of the day, and he's going to make mistakes in terms of team selections, which I did feel last night possibly was a mistake in team selection, and he'll learn from it. He learned from it throughout the second half last night, making those changes. So there's going to be players he can trust going forward. There's going to be players he can't really trust as much going forward, and when push comes to shove, there'll be a starting 11 and a first choice 11 that kind of. I'd imagine you'll see that against Motherwell next week as well. Will come out. That'll be a lot of changes. Will stiffen up the midfield. Asgard will likely drop out. So I do think he's earned that trust. We've got to be giving it both ways as well there, because whilst we know that performances can be frustrating, we've got to try and get behind this team as much as we can, because they've got us in a really good position to do something truly special in the second half of this season.
What do you feel was the mistakes that you're referring to there within the starting lineup?
Yeah, I think there's been a few mistakes. Obviously, Asgard of late has not been up to scratch. I think sometimes when the bigger games comes from him, there's a lot left to be desired in his performances. I felt Nico Raskin last night at times in that first half was pretty slack in his passing. Gisama as well. Even though he did win the penalty, we were huffing and puffing, as you say, during that first half, and it points down to a mentality issue with certain players. It's just we get ourselves into these good positions all the time, and they're always looking for someone else to take them by the hand and lead us towards a victory. 9 times out of 10 it'll be James Tavernier that tries to do it, but obviously with Tav getting on now, you're looking to the other new players to come into the fold and really guide this team forward. And we'll talk about the second half performance. That's what they did, but there's other players there that in the first half especially you were looking at and thinking, come on, this is your chance. You've been given the chance by the manager. You're letting them down. You're letting the support down, and ultimately that's where a lot of the frustration came from last night.
Yeah, I think it's fair comment, right? I do understand it. I think the Asgard thing is interesting because he has contributed. We can't deny that. You know, he's won games for us. And he's popped up with important goals. I think, I mean, Rangers released a goal of the month thing for January. I think I saw it yesterday.
Yeah.
Where the obvious candidates were in there was the Chermiti goal against Celtic, the Mikey Moore goal against Celtic, and the Asgard free kick against Annan. And I said at the time, after the Annan game, I think genuinely that free kick that Asgard scored was one of the best free kicks I've ever seen at Ibrox. And it doesn't matter that it was against Annan, because I don't know of many keepers in the world would have saved it. No. I mean, so it's not against the opposition, it's the technique and the hit. But this is probably where it does lean into frustration, because you do see things like this and you do see where he can contribute. It's an inconsistency for me, where you see that. And Rule... And it probably dials back a little bit to what we were discussing there about his frustration, because what the sense I get from Danny Gruel is that he absolutely understands where the standards need to be, because I don't think he would have taken the Rangers job unless he felt that he was aligned to those standards, that he saw the values mirrored within himself.
Yeah.
And we've seen performances, you mentioned Parkhead, Wednesday night, again, another example where he wants to get them in at half-time. I know we use the old adage and the cliche of the rocket up the arse and all that. I actually don't think he's like that. What I think he will do is he will talk to them calmly and sensibly. It's not the old Alec Ferguson hairdryer. I think he will, express himself in a way where he thinks that we can do better. What the issue with Asgard, I think, for me, more than anything else, Simon, is that I think that he's capable of playing better. And we have seen him do that. And now we're in this storm, right? This crazy scenario of being able to recover ourselves from, being in quite factually in a relegation spot in this season, to then being able to go for the league, and that turnaround in points that Danny Rule mentioned. So now we're looking at all of these players, every single one of them as individuals, to say, do you have what it takes to deliver what we are looking for here? Which is exactly the same conversation I think Danny Rule is having in his head whenever he assesses any of his players at Auchenhowie, when he's looking at them, within the games. So in actual fact, we're probably all on the same page in that space. But it's not just an Asgard problem.
No, absolutely
Because
not.
there will be some other ones, and I try and mitigate for some of that. You mentioned Gassama there. Gassama's played a lot of football.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with Jaden Magoma, and that's why. And again, we will touch on this as we break down the Killie game second half. But I'm glad we brought in another left back. I wouldn't say competition because I don't think Magoma has been so bad that it's been a crisis point.
No, it has.
Because of his performances that we've had to bring in a left back. But fundamentally, you cannot go an entire season in 4 different tournaments to then say, well, we'll just play one player there and he'll play all the minutes. It's just impossible. It cannot happen. However, we will move on to the second half because I think it absolutely bears mention. And I said this to you last night as we were doing that car pod. I think that this game within its microcosm is symbolic of how our league campaign has went thus far, where, really disappointing in the first half, and then the second half, night and day, totally different. And I absolutely will give a lot of credit to some of those players. I will give credit to Miovski because I thought his finish, despite a really disappointing first half, I thought his finish was excellent. And then on the hour mark, as I think we all know, right, it had always been the game plan from the manager was start to introduce some fresh blood and obviously bring on new signings. A lot of the focus points had been towards Nadiri and whether or not he would start. The Chermiti injury meant, does that potentially move him up the rankings a little bit? Where I suppose the counterpoint to your disappointment with the starting lineup for me, I actually think he did exactly the right thing with Nadiri. He gave him some time to bed in on the bench and then still involved him because we are going to have to use him as of right now. We can't allow him too much time to bed in because we have got, in the league especially, a lot of important games coming up. He's going to have to get up to speed. And for me, that's probably where that worked really well. And then as soon as Rangers started to click and those misplaced passes that you talked about, underhit, overhit, those risks started to come out of it, Rangers started to score almost at will. But I don't want to decry away for the quality of the finishes because there were some really, really good goals in that Kilmarnock second half.
Yeah, there absolutely was, and we talk about the strikers there. Majovski has been much maligned of late, and the first half was really frustrating from him, and I actually seen his frustration in the first half. I know he's not been excellent, but watching him coming running down towards the Copeland end in that first half, he made a lot of runs in behind, and just none of our players were willing to put the ball in. That's the type of striker he is. He wants that ball in behind quickly. He did get the one chance, obviously, and he sclaffed at it in the first half, but his goal in the second half was absolutely outstanding. Really good work down the left-hand side, and Diamande lays it off to him, and then from the edge of the box, he puts it in first time, and that's what you can get with him when he's on top of his game. So I'm not willing to write him off yet, but he has got a job in his hands to get a starting position going forward. And you mentioned Nadiri, he's going to look to hit the ground running at the weekend in the cup game as well, and he showed up pretty well against Killie, I felt, as well. So the positive signs are there in terms of the strikers. We just need to bring them into the games more and get the chance creation up for them. That's our issue, is creating those chances for those strikers.
And you saw where that did start to come off because there was, as I say, the finishes were excellent, but the build-up play I felt looked very much by design. We were looking to do the overlap and underlap from the flanks, been able to get the ball across to anyone who's kind of sitting within the box. I thought the Skov Olsen goal was absolutely fantastic in terms of just a great wee technique, and he fires it right into the postage stamp. The player I was most delighted for personally, based on that 90 minutes, was Mikey Moore getting the goal right at the end. Again, another really great goal where Rangers, I don't know if this was discussed at half-time and then this was obviously the instruction for them to be able to follow, but they learned and started to execute this move of, if Kilmarnock are playing a fairly packed box, you're going to have to get shots away quickly. It's going to have to be, you get maybe one touch maximum if you can't hit it first time, but you're going to have to get it away quickly before they can react. And as I say, the last 15 minutes, it turned into quite the show.
It did. Those goals you're talking about, those one touches, goals 3, 4 and 5 are prime examples of it. Skov Olsen gets it out, he digs it out with a lovely finish curled into the top corner. Ant-Man's one as well, for a 1-2 from Mikey Moore, I think Romans, sorry. He plays it in, and Ant-Man just takes 1-2 touches and it's in the back of the net. And for the last goal as well, Ant-Man just with one touch to set up Mikey Moore, puts it on his good foot and slots it home. It was really good goals. Some of the best goals we've seen all season, really, in terms of team play and build-up as well. So it's all about building for your Mikey Moore. We know what he can bring. I'm just worried about where he'll fit in over these next couple of games, as stupid as that is to say, just because of the options we now have. I want to see him perhaps playing that number 10 role that he was playing towards the end. I know he was moved in there towards the end of the game last night to accommodate Ant-Man making his return, who I felt showed up really well on that left-hand side as well. So that's a good headache to have in terms of the wide options now for the manager, to have these players ticking over. So Mikey Moore in general, man of the match at the game, man of the match on the carpod as we gave him, and it was a really terrific performance for a boy who's 18 years of age and looks years ahead of his game.
And he's fearless. That's what I love about him, Simon, as well. I agree with you, by the way. I think he's far more effective when he's more central. I think the space in which he operates and the move very early on in the game, first couple of minutes, obviously, last night, where he comes in from the left-hand side and he's running almost in the parallel to the 18-yard box. He sees Gassama being able to make the move. Now, what I personally love about all of this was Mikey Moore had to make a very, very good slip pass there. And the reason as to why he had to kind of do that slide rule pass, being able to Gassama, was because he's hitting it towards where Gassama is going to be.
Yeah.
And what Gassama could have done is applied the brakes slightly there, take the ball to feet, but then he still has the defender to make. Because of the quality of the ball from Moore and the ingenuity of it, Gassama is able to get ahead of his man. And at that point, Don Thompson, he has to make the decision to bring him down because he knows that he cannot get ahead of him to be able to block the shot. So when you create headaches and problems like that for defenders, it shows that you've got that attacking prowess. There's almost, I suppose, and I'm moving more into a kind of tactical spod type tangent here, but the thing for me, I would say, if you play that as part of a number 10, I would almost encourage a wee bit of a free roll there, where he's not as central, but he can operate left, middle, and right. And what I mean by that is that he can float so that he can either go direct or he can come inside and then he can look at his potential options there because he has it in his locker. But what I loved about that performance last night and why I was so delighted for him to get his first goal at Ibrox, also having the chance to meet Michael Malls as well, by the way, so pretty much a perfect night as far as I'm concerned. But he just wanted the ball constantly, and his energy was unbelievable to play 93 minutes, and even at the death, still getting forward with the ball, still wanting to be able to do more. He obviously had a personal ambition there to be able to try and see if he could get in the score sheet, but he was not being selfish by any measure by saying, well, I'm just going to start having pops at goal rather than being able to slide it in. He continued doing what he was doing. That's a really effective tool if he can keep that up.
Indeed it is. That he played the full game is probably a hint that he won't feature in the Cup at the weekend, and we're keeping him now for part next midweek. And just in terms of his general impact on Rangers, it's took him a couple of months, as it would for anyone, really, to recover after the disaster at the start of the season that it was. But after his injury, he's really kicked on. You look at, there was a game between Christmas and New Year, I think it was Motherwell at home, where some of the passes he was picking out for our strikers were absolutely outstanding, and that was a game we were missing chances right, left and centre in those last 5-10 minutes, but Moore could have had 5 or 6 assists in that one match alone. So the game vision's there, the game intelligence is there. It's just knitting all this together now, and we will say last night was probably his most complete performance as a Rangers player, but we know even now there's still far more to come, and it's going to be an exciting few weeks if we can keep him fit in terms of our chances for the title.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to also make a point here as well to talk about this, Simon, that if anyone didn't get a chance to see the game and they just simply looked at the summary and saw a red card for Killie, as I say, 3 minutes in, saw the scoreline, you then think, well, Killie obviously collapsed. Yeah. And they didn't. They continued to press. They obviously got a boost in terms of their previous game and the result there, but Neil McCann, I have to give him credit for this. He didn't want his players to sit back, when they had the man sent off. They continued to press on us, and evidence of this was a complete brain fart by Jack Butland to give Killie their goal. It's a square ball by Nasa Jiga. Wearing long johns, which I'll be honest with you, I've not seen in modern day football, but fair play to him because I thought, again, he was outstanding. So he should have been wearing them long before now. But he plays a square ball through to Butland. Butland just it's a complete mind blank from him in terms of why he tries to do what he tries to do. He almost feels like he has to be able to try and take a touch on it. Now, there are two Kilmarnock players bearing down on him, but he still get plenty of time and space to get that ball cleared. I don't know how you would categorise it. He gets a touch, a sclaff, a swipe at the ball, falls to Halkett. He's able to Halkett, to Kiltie. He's able to get it away, and you could tell from Jack Butland's body language after that he was really, really pissed off to not only lose the clean sheet, but to lose a goal in that manner. It's for someone who, like you say, has done very, very well for us. I think he earned us a point at Easter Road, if I'm being honest, with a couple of great saves. I'm going to allow him, a poor performance, if you want to call it that. What Jack Butland has to do is not do what he did last season and now start to go on a run of conceding poor goals. He is going to have to shake this off and shake it off really quickly.
Yeah, we've seen what happened last season when all those mistakes started coming. It kind of snowballed from there. But there's been a few mistakes earlier in the season, and he's really picked himself back up. I don't know if that's due to the new setup in terms of the coaches. We've got Sal Bibble, the goalkeeping coach. Is it Sasha Lentz, who's like the sort of psychologist behind things as well? So that's probably one that's been able to pick him up after these low moments. And as you say, he's kept us in a lot of games this season. He's helped win us a lot of points, and you'd rather these mistakes come at 3-0 down rather than being a tight game. So we'll forgive him for that one last night, but let's hope he doesn't start making a habit of it again.
So, yeah, absolutely. We finished the game worthy winners. Rangers started to turn on the gas in the second half, and really, really pleasing performance and exactly what we wanted, and a strong scoreline, which obviously helps with goal difference. It may come down to that, we don't know. But really keen to get your thoughts on what you've seen from the new signings. Now, I'm going to temper this a little bit as well, Simon, because what we've mentioned already when we talked about Mikey Moore, I want to bring Manny Fernandez into that conversation as well, is that one of the things I always try and encourage myself and other fans whenever a Rangers sign a player is allow them to bed in. Allow them that opportunity, and let's not write them off too early. You need to give them a fair crack of the whip. As we kind of discussed, I thought it was the right thing to do for the manager to consider about how to bring in Romans, how to be able to bring in Nadiri into some of that. He could have made the decision. I agree with you earlier on, by the way, about he could have made the decision about swapping over and bringing Chukwani involved in it as well. Yeah. Don't really know about how much difference that would have made in the here and now, because I think he operates best as a six and breaking down play. So it's a bit apples and oranges for whether or not he would have been needed in that type of game with a man advantage. However, Skov Olsen also came on as well, gets his goal, as we've mentioned. As things stand just now, I'm really, really pleased with how Rangers have went about their transfer business. I do give a lot of credit to the board. Again, a caveat that with saying it was a horrendous summer transfer window, so they've had to make up ground for that. And I do want to, applaud their commitment to doing that, because we said, Simon, about December kind of time when we started to claw ourselves back into this, and then we've got the win at Parkhead, was whoever between Hearts, Celtic and Rangers recruit best will set themselves up to put themselves in the best possible position to win this title. And speaking bluntly, I think Rangers have come out on top on that.
Yeah, they absolutely have. And it's just all about kicking on for here in terms of those signings. You look at Hearts, I think they signed a new left-back, they signed a midfielder on loan, they signed a striker who is going to take some time to get used to the game here. He wasn't even in their squad the other night after making his debut against Dundee United. And you look at the other side of the city, still making signings after deadline days shut. So there's still panic mode over there. In terms of our signings, you just need to look at Romans gradually getting eased into the side over the last. Apparently he's been flying in training over the last week or two. We've eased him in. He got 25 minutes last night. He looked mean, if that's what I said, if that's him at 50% fit, he looks really, really pacey as well. I didn't think he was that fast as well. Just the engine on him looks as if he's going to get up and down that left-hand side pretty easily. Looks to be always overlapping and underlapping at every opportunity to try and get assists off. And you've seen as well, Scott Olsen, when he came on, unfairly criticised, I feel, over the last couple of games as well. Just he's got to remember less than 70 minutes, 80 minutes of football prior to signing. I think his last official start was in September, and then he's only played 5 or 6 minutes for Wolfsburg in at the end of November there. So he'll take his time, but you've seen his quality with his goal. Nadiri, you're looking at him to come into the side over the next couple of weeks and really start kicking on. I felt he was unlucky last night with a chance that he missed after being set up by Olsen. So,
and it was close as well, by the way.
It was, yeah, just wide of the keeper's left-hand post. And Chukwani, who I feel not really get any concerns over at all, I felt he's kind of slotted in pretty seamlessly into that number 6 role over his couple of games that he's been featured in. And he can probably find himself unlucky not to start last night, but I can see why the manager brought Igamane back in, because for me, he's been our best midfielder since the start of January when he came on at half-time against Celtic. Really helped set the tone for that second half performance and helped kick us on over the next couple of weeks. So, yeah, it's looking decent. We just need to keep our feet grounded as well over these next couple of weeks, because this is the true acid test now. We've got Motherwell coming up, we've got Hearts coming up. You're looking at playing Livingston away at the end of the month, and then obviously the big game against Celtic. So if we can come out of those games relatively unscathed, we've got a real chance at it. But the old cliche is one game at a time, and that's all we can do, starting with the Scottish Cup this weekend.
Yeah, we take on Queen's Park, not Stranraer, due to fielding an ineligible player. Stranraer were removed from the competition, and we are now playing Queen's Park on Sunday at Ibrox. And from a timing perspective, Simon, for the reasons that you've just mentioned, I think this has fitted us perfectly. I am not going to be glib about our chances against Queen's Park. I think we've got more than enough to beat them, so I'm not necessarily worried about that, but we do have to make sure that we take it seriously enough that we do our jobs properly, we make it as easy on ourselves as we possibly can. But based on those new signings and getting some game time, which you've mentioned there, this has come at a good time for us, I think, to be able to include some of them and give a rest to some of the other players who have had quite a lot of minutes so far this season.
Yeah, without doubt. It's a totally different situation from this time we played them last season in the Cup, and they knocked us out. We're looking as if we're starting to get a bit more confidence about us, play a bit more on the up, whereas last season we were at rock bottom at times during those periods of time. You're coming into Queen's Park, bottom of the Championship, coming off a loss at the weekend to the team who were below them at the time, Ross County, who leapfrogged them. So it's... I'm not going to, as you say, be glib and say it's going to be an easy win, but it really should be straightforward for us if we be professional about it and just take it with the exact same attitude as the Annan game. We want to see those kind of performances again. Guys like Miovski getting the goals, and you'd imagine this will be him and Deary might start as a 2 in that game, especially Chermiti hasn't made it, and you'd probably think Chermiti might be one to feature at Fir Park midweek as well. But in terms of Queen's Park, yeah, we should be taking care of them with relative ease and looking forward to book our place in the next round. And as you say, it's a really good game for the new players to step in. And I would be giving them at least an hour from the start for all of them, because we're going to need them starting at Fir Park next week.
Yeah, I think, and it sounds daft because obviously we just said he's come off the back of a man in the match performance, but this is also where if you were going to play Mikey Moore, I'd give him 30 minutes, or as you rightly said, maybe a half, purely just to keep him nice and fresh, but not overload him. It will be interesting, actually, the point you made there, because as crazy as it sounds, I want Nadiri to play because I want him to get game time, and I want Miovski to play because I want him to get goals. We don't know the extent of the Chermiti injury. We're hoping that it's not too bad. He had to get stitches on his Achilles, which is a problematic area for injuries to heal, but irrespective, worst case scenario, he's not available for Park.
Yeah.
Then we've got 2 strikers there who, ideally, a lot of hunger from the day. I like what I saw from him Wednesday night in terms of really keen to get forward, really keen to be able to try and press that line, something that I've been critical of Chermiti about before, because whilst I think his overall athletic ability and his pace is improving, because it used to be the case, Simon, that he would be a little bit further back or he'd be trying to get the ball unsuccessfully. and then we were trying to spring a counter attack, but there was no one up in the box. And Nadiri seems very, very keen to make sure that he's at the top of the line. If Chukwane was to come in to be able to do that, I think, again, nothing wrong with that at all. Gives him an opportunity to get a little bit more familiar with Scottish football. He's had a taste of it so far, so let's keep that going. Scavolson, I'm not necessarily too worried about at the moment, and I would start Romans, all with a view to being able to, as you say, get these guys some game time. Now, if you put out there that on paper, that very decent core of a starting lineup, then if we can manage the game through and we're comfortable at halftime, for example, then I would just simply say, right, okay, well, we can start to bring on others, we can start to change it around a little bit. Fundamentally, as always with these type of cup games, it's about winning the game first and foremost.
Yeah, it is. And you talk about actually being in a position now to rest players. Like if you'd told any of us that 8 weeks ago, you'd have been called daft, because we needed our top players to be playing every single game to try and dig us out a hole. And you look now, Dujon Sterling rested last night against Killie due to managing his minutes. I'd imagine he won't feature against Queen's Park as well, just with a view to him starting next week against Motherwell. So it's a good position to finally be in, getting new players in the door who can probably get an hour on Saturday, on Sunday against Queen's Park, with a view to them starting midweek as well. So yeah, for once the options are starting to get good again. I think it's only really Derek Cornelius and Connor Barron that are the only sort of long-term players out injured. So and Cornelius is back in training as well. So that's going to be a player that will be available probably for selection within the next fortnight. So a more experienced centre-half option as well in there. So, I mean, everything's starting to come into place a little bit in terms of the squad. We just need to keep pushing on now, as we said.
Yeah, and it's a squad game, and I'm sorry that sounds incredibly obvious, but the reason why I wanted to make that point is now, as you say, we've got some more selection options. We've got the opportunity to get some game time in for some of these players who are just new in the building, or alternatively are coming back from injury, or coming back from dips in form. Where we can allow some of those players to come in and just get that taster for it, because to kind of forward plan the games that you're talking about, so Fir Park, Hearts, Ibrox, etc., obviously Celtic here as well. And I'm sorry, I don't want to panic about it too much, because I just don't think it's worth it. But even away at Livingston as well, and their shit pitch and all the rest of it, we'll need to rotate. We'll need to be able to make sure that everyone is stepping into that contribution, which is why I think, the point I made earlier on about Asgard's involvement and what Danny Rule, I think, is going to have to be able to say to the squad collectively and to each individual player is everyone is going to have to play a part here.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's going to be, Manny Fernandez being able to attack at corners and winning his games, Tello Asgard being able to win his games, Jack Butland being able to make sure that we can secure points and, not drop any more than is absolutely necessary. It's going to be really important that everyone understands this. And the big thing and the big hope is as well that last night gives them that self-belief, improves the confidence, because I think confidence is one of these things, Simon, that it can take weeks, days, weeks, months, years to build, and it can be broken in seconds. What has to happen now with this Rangers team, and what I would love us to be able to sit here talking about in a couple of weeks, is not only being able to get 6 points out of 6 against Motherwell and Hearts, obviously, but the idea that we're starting to develop a kind of cutthroat, ruthless streak that shows that we are determined to be able to get this league done and dusted.
Yeah, you're right. And I called last night like a hard reset on the car pod. We'd won 8 games in the bounce. Yeah, the Hibs result was disappointing, as we said, but you're always going to get bumps in the road in a title race. And when you look at it cold like today, it was possibly a really close call that's done us in that one as well. Moore might have just been offside for that goal, but we're always going to get peaks and troughs, ups and downs in terms of performances. We just need to make sure that we're cutting those bad performances out more often than not. And when you look at what they've done, as I said, we were 14 points behind Hearts at one point. We've managed to bring it back down to 3 points. So the manager's earned the trust, as we mentioned earlier as well. So it's all about these players now, and it's taking it, again, one game at a time. Don't get too far ahead of themselves. Queen's Park in the Cup, Motherwell, that's your next two headlights to go for. and really get stuck in, go for a charge in the Scottish Cup, and then make inroads in the league, because the next 3-4 weeks will make or break the season for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be interesting. I was almost about to say fun there, but I don't know if it'll be fun. It'll be fun after it if we win. But yeah, it's what this is about. This is why we love this club, because the joy is immeasurable. But they'll put us through the ringer, and that's what certainly Rangers have done so far this season. So yes, it will be very, very interesting for sure. We will be back on Monday. David will be on Flagship to unpack the Queen's Park game and look forward to our trip to Motherwell on Wednesday night. I'll be back the following Thursday to be able to discuss that Motherwell game, and looking ahead to being able to hopefully get us into that really confident spot as we will take on Hearts at Ibrox on the 15th, which is next Sunday. Thank you very much to you all for listening. Thank you to Mikey and Paul Myers. And Simon, thank you very much for coming on, buddy. As I say, I'm delighted for you that Rangers appear to have had a really productive transfer window. You can now go back and rest until the summer comes around.
Yeah, I was going to say there's no rest for the wicked. I'll be back Monday morning with my show as well. So yeah, it's going to be a busy few weeks again, but transfer window done and dusted. Looking forward to seeing these new signings once they're really up and running and fully fit. So the signs are positive that this is just starting to get going.
I was about to say that you could come on over to the Patreon site and you could listen to Simon's show, the Monday Roundtable, as well, which is a great way to kick off your week.
Yep.
However, since you've already come on and plugged your own show, which is so thirsty, it's ridiculous.
It's not a calling.
I'd like you to all come on to our Patreon site, which is patreon.com/Heart and Hand. There's a whole load of brilliant shows on there that will keep you up to date with everything that happens with Rangers. And we've also got Simon's show. There you go. That's it. That's the most I'm going to give you a plug.
There you go.
But it's a brilliant chat, and it is always great to be able to kick off the week for everything involving Rangers. Thank you all for listening. David will be back on Monday, and I'll be back with you next week. Speak soon. Bye-bye.